What we see in the world is, unfortunately, people who are self-proclaimed religious people, many times they end up becoming the source of creating a chain of violent incidents.
Yes.
How do you reconcile these two things?
That's an excellent question, actually. It's a very good question, especially for our day and age. Because you're right, we do tend to see, in the name of religion, a lot of fanaticism sometimes, fundamentalism, certainly in the form of Islamic fundamentalism, but sometimes certainly even in Hinduism itself, we'll see, leaders who sometimes are not living up to everything that they should. Spirituality, ultimately, is a life of balance. It's a life of balance. And what I've seen is that when even spiritual leaders start to sway in one direction or another and they fall off balance, that's when you start to have problems. So, for example, the two, you could say, opposite poles in spirituality tends to be Jnana, intellectualism, on the one hand, but then Bhakti, or let's say devotionalism on the other. Both have to be there. You need to have that balance. And when one person starts to veer toward one or the other exclusively, that's when the problem arises. When a person tends to be very emotional about their religion, but they don't use their intelligence, they tend to become fundamentalists. They tend to do things based on their emotion. They tend to do things based on blind faith. But then conversely, when people are purely intellectuals, then really their understanding of spirituality is very dry. As someone, who was in academia for some time, you see a lot of professors, for example, who, intellectually they can explain anything to you about religion, but they're not experiencing it themselves. So it tends to be very dry, very dull. So truthfully, you need to have this balance where you have both. A philosophical understanding of spirituality where you cultivate wisdom, jnana, on the one hand, but on the other hand, there also has to be devotion. And the reason why devotion is so important is it is the essence of spirituality. With devotion, what we are doing ultimately is we are ridding ourselves of ego. Because what are we doing when we're being devotional toward God? What we're doing is we are saying, Lord, I am surrendering myself unto you. And when we do this, we're transcending ego. We're transcending selfishness. We're transcending all of these modes of being that really actually harm us. It's interesting. Ego, when we have too much ego, it's quite literally like building a brick wall around our head. And if you have a brick wall, if you had a literal brick wall around your head, life wouldn't be very pleasant. You wouldn't be able to see outside. Others wouldn't be able to reach you, But if you dissolve that wall, now suddenly you can see the world around you. Now suddenly others can communicate with you. You can communicate with them. Now the sunlight can come in. Now you're living free. And it's amazing how ego actually is bondage. But when we dissolve that ego with humility, with devotion to God, knowing in our minds that, oh yes, I can have so many different talents, but God Himself upholds all the universes without any effort whatsoever. So whatever talents we have, they may seem wonderful, but we have to offer homage to that being who sustains quite literally everything, all of reality. When we can have that humility, when we allow that wall, that brick wall of ego to just dissolve, then we have peace. Then we have happiness. Then the rat race stops for us. But we still stay engaged in the world.
Sri Dharma Pravartaka Acharya, Dr. Frank Morales, when he says things, it sounds like music to our ears because there is harmony and there is this sense of being in tune to the original source which is making things happen. And as the time has come to say thanks to him and appreciate his presence with us, I also see there is a website that you must have read, www.dharmacentral.com, and you may find more about him. Is it .com or?
.com, yes. .com. Yes.
Why not .org?
.com was available at the time. So.
No, I feel there must be people who enjoyed listening to you and they would like that you should come and address a group of people do you do those kind of things? Can they approach?
Oh, absolutely. They can feel free to contact me. I do talks all throughout the nation. I've done hundreds and hundreds of talks at Hindu temples, universities, many places. In fact, here, the reason why I'm here in New York presently is I'm on a lecture tour. I'm doing approximately, something like a dozen talks in 12 days at various mandirs, various Hindu temples. I did a talk at Columbia University. So people certainly can feel free to contact me and arrange talks with me. They can go either to my website, all my information is on there. If they want to reach me personally, they can email me at, very simply, info@dharmacentral.com. That's my email address. And certainly they can feel free to contact me, and yes, I would love to arrange to speak at any place, any temples, organizations, etc.
So nice. And you also have written a couple of books. I think the one that I have here is the Shakti, the Principle. And
Yes.
there must be many more based on his lectures and other speeches. So it was such a pleasure having a wonderful guest today in Shubstar, and it marks the beginning of Holi festival also, which we definitely pray and wish should bring a lot of joy in the lives of all our viewers, irrespective of